I want to talk to you about the hardest part about scaling an e-commerce business. And it's not your ads, not your conversion rates, not many of these tactics that I talk about here on this channel. I actually want to talk about the difference between a 7-figure operator and an 8-figure operator. Over the last 4 years, we've had the pleasure of working with both 8-figure brands, even 9-figure brands, and our 7-figure founders. And oftentimes, 7-figure e-commerce brands, they're very focused on tactics. They're very focused on the next quick hack, next trick, just to unlock that little bit of profit. The 8-figure operators, they just move different, right? They don't look at things from such a minuscule level, right? They usually have team members or they work with agencies like ourselves that have that focus on those minute things. They're more focused on the big pictures. So let's just start off with risk tolerance. The 8-figure brands that we work with, they are taking massive swings. And the brands that we work with that have gone from 7 figures to 8 figures, this is something that they have to, really get used to. Oftentimes, when we're doing 6-7 figures in business, we want to play it safe. We're just looking for those next singles or doubles that we can get on base with. With the 8-figure brands, they're looking for massive, big opportunities. They're not looking to just see an improvement in their ROAS. They're not just looking to increase their email revenue. They're looking to have massive shifts. Now, what does that actually mean? One, they're much more willing to scale on acquisition. Now, they know their numbers. They have deep idea of their financials so that they can invest more into their marketing and take bigger swings that way. Second, they're often working in other channels, right? Retail, Amazon, e-commerce. And so they might be doing these huge purchase orders that might feel risky, and they're just willing to continue to put themselves on the line, just keep putting themselves out there to make those risks. So one big shift we have to make is obviously opening up that opportunity, opening up that tolerance for risk. The second thing is that they look more long-term, right? So a lot of times, a lot of our 7-figure brands, 6-figure brands, even that we work with, they're very much on day-to-day, right? One bad day of sales, you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Did our ads just break? No, that's not what happens. We have to look at things at bigger time horizons, right? There's many things that impact a business. Of course, there's your strategy, there's your products, but there's also other things that happen in the world. We have economic implications. We have seasonal implications, some things that you can't control. And 8-figure operators and 9-figure operators that we work with, they understand this and they don't get too emotional on the day-to-day. They stay at a baseline. They understand the big picture. They know their big goals and they don't get caught up in the weeds. Sometimes, with 6-7-figure founders, they're like this all the time. One bad day, one good day, things are working, it's like all over the place. And so what we need to make sure is that we stay stable. We understand the big picture. We have bigger goals. We have the forecast to actually hit those goals. We're not stressing out on day-to-day because things are volatile. This is business. We had a founder literally that we onboarded 2 months ago that, is doing a few million in his e-commerce brand, but he looks at everything on a daily basis. So if it's a good day, he's happy. If it's a bad day, he freaks out. And it was interesting because he had like one bad week and we had to sit down with him and he's like, oh, why is performance? And we zoomed out, we look at the month and then we compared it to year over year month and they were actually up, right? So we have to make sure that we're looking at the big picture and not just looking at day to day. And we do not go based off feelings. Sometimes founders get too emotional. They say, oh, I feel like this isn't working. We have to run the data. Just let the numbers decide. Just simply make a decision based upon the numbers. Don't just base your, decisions on feelings. That's a surefire way to fail. The third thing that we see with 8-figure founders versus 7-figure founders is that they shift from the doer to the architect. So the 8-figure e-com founder, they are great at assembling teams and building systems around what they're doing versus 7-figure founder or 7-figure e-commerce brand. Oftentimes they're doing a lot of the work themselves. Maybe they have a very small team. They're very hands-on with everything. And so with 8-figure brand, because they have so much going on, they need to make sure they have the right butts and seats, the right people that they can trust to actually execute these things. And they have to make sure they have systems in place, right? So with e-commerce, do you have a creative system to churn out new ads? Are you creating net new, emails? Is your email strategy dialed in? 7-figure brands are very reactive. They're doing things last minute. Oh my God, we got to get this email campaign. We got to do all those things. 8-figure brands, the founders have the overarching strategy. They have great executors that can get stuff done, and they have that full trust in them to carry out the strategy that he proposed, right? So they're much less in the weeds. They're more so overseeing everything and controlling everything from the top. The next thing is that a lot of our 8 to 9-figure brands are very much focused on enterprise value versus like revenue. So when you get to the point where you're doing 8, 9+ figures on e-commerce, you're really trying to push for that exit. And the way that you scale a business might be a little bit different different if you're just trying to pay your bills. We love working with brands that want to sell in like 3 to 5 years because they're all about growth at all costs. Now, of course, we don't want to break the bank or overspend when we're growing, but their mindset is a lot more different because they're looking for a sale. They want to sell their business. And so that's a big shift that I've seen is that a lot of 7-figure e-commerce brands, they play it safe, right? They're just trying to make payroll. They're just trying to, make up for their marketing costs. Like they're thinking a lot smaller. The 8-figure operators, they want to sell. They want to get that maximum multiple on their e-commerce brand. So they just move different in that way. So yes, of course, I always talk about the actual ins and outs of e-commerce strategy, but it's also important to understand the mindset element because how you show up every day, how you think about your business, how you react to different situations, that has a massive impact on the performance of your brand. And so it's very important to understand how can we shift our mindset. One thing that I personally do is I always think of like the 2.0, 3.0 version of myself. So yeah, you might be a 7-figure operator right now, but how can you start operating like an 8-figure founder? How can you start thinking like that? Because before you know it, you're just going to manifest that reality for yourself. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, a little bit different than my typical topics here. If you'd like me to personally audit your 7 or 8-figure e-commerce brand, I'll leave a link down below to schedule in your free core growth audit. At the very least, I post consistent content around e-commerce, marketing, and trainings just like this. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.